The topic of this talk is rediscovering the meaning and quality of consecrated life. When a young man joins consecrated life, continued spiritual formation and theological studies impact his integral development. It is not just through studies in theology, but also through their experiences arising from humanness that they meet transcendence, or the God of their understanding. For older consecrated persons, there is a continuous call to spiritual development, which might require a review of the past and a looking forward, and contentment with one's call. A consecrated person's spiritual experience should be crystallized around the metaphor that God is love. Consecrated men and women have various experiences of God before they join for the priesthood or a particular congregation. These experiences and understandings of God may change or get modified, and they may develop other images during the years of study towards the priesthood, towards vows, and even after that. These images are not developed purely through instruction in theology or spirituality, but they also come through experience. Consecrated men and women might struggle with doubts about their vocation, but once they resolve their doubts and find comfort, peace, and reassurance, they find that they open up to a wide spectrum of feelings and images than they previously had. Thus, their understandings of God images that develop during their years of life, as well as by the effect of education and reflection, would indicate influence of continued spiritual formation throughout life and the need for a continued spiritual formation. What is happening nowadays among consecrated persons is a reduction in the spiritual life, which is happening insidiously. There is a progressive taking on of middle class values and a consumer mentality. The prevalence of personal projects over community endeavors. The tension between secularism and an authentic life of faith. Between the fragility of humanity itself and the power of grace. And there also is a loss in the understanding of the evangelical counsels of chastity, poverty, and obedience through the pollution of the spirit, through understandings of life, and through understandings of culture, which insidiously change. Therefore, there is a call to an invitation of a liberating purification. The task of those in authority within congregations, orders, and dioceses is to animate and propose the mission of animation, of brotherly or sisterly support, of listening, of dialogue, and being in full communion and apostolic and ministerial services. Formative courses that help to integrate theological, humanistic, and technical studies with the spiritual and apostolic life will always conserve the characteristic of the call to holiness. There is the need for subjective choices. Individual projects and local customs that might prevail over the rule. Considerations also need to be looked at with regard to the style of community life and the apostolic projects of a community. This should happen in formative dialogue. A cultural formation in line with the times and in dialogue with the research of the meaning of human life today, philosophical, theological, and psychological fields, and a more profound orientation to the spiritual life should be emphasized. There now are models more adapted to the cultures in which new vocations are being born, and there also are well-planned programs for ongoing formation. A consecrated person is by nature also a vocation animator, because one who is called cannot not become a caller. There is therefore a natural link between formation, ongoing formation, and vocation animation, which cannot be separated from a true specific youth ministry, which first and foremost communicates Christ's love to everyone and also to youth in a more specific way, because congregations draw their vocations from the young. The powerful witness that a consecrated person can give to those he or she serves is through witnessing. It is the witness given through knowing and serving Christ, who is the primary motivating factor in the life of the person. In this way, the consecrated person will be a witness to love. This should happen throughout life for a consecrated person. In every age and season, in every human ambient and context, from every person and every culture, open to be taught by any fragment of truth and beauty found around them. Consecrated persons are formed by everyday life, by the community, by their brothers and sisters, by everyday things, ordinary and extraordinary, by prayer and by apostolic fatigue, in joy and suffering, until the moment of death. There should be an openness to the other and otherness. The living of a consecrated person calls for a return to one's roots. It requires living the fullness of theology of the evangelical councils, with a model of the Trinitarian life as the starting point. Vita Consecrata of John Paul II gives ideas and a new opportunity that tells consecrated persons to come in contact with the sources of the dioceses or congregations, the charisms and constitutional texts of dioceses and congregations, which are always open to new and more demanding interpretations. It also implies that they find their first love in Christ, who becomes the center of their life and the continual source of every initiative. This begins in the historical events of the various charisms among consecrated persons, which includes community life and a constant reference to the rule. An authentic spiritual life requires that everyone, in all the diverse vocations of consecrated life, regularly dedicate every day appropriate times to enter deeply into silent conversation with Him, by whom they know they are loved, to share their lives with Him, and to receive enlightenment to continue on the daily journey. The Eucharist is the privileged place for such an encounter with the Lord. This is a spirituality of communion which happens around the Eucharist. It includes a sharing in the joys and sufferings of our brothers and sisters, sensing their desires and attending to their needs, offering them true and profound friendship. Holiness and mission develop in this way through the internal life transferred from the personal level onto that of the different ecclesial realities.